or various times given your location. So we're so appreciative of you taking the time to be with us. Of course, we're all disappointed that we're not able to meet you in person for our true Revisit Days on campus, but we're glad that we can do this, and you know, it's great for us to be able to see one another, our students who are at home right now. So it's great to connect this way. A few housekeeping things for this next hour conversation. You'll see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A pod or button. I'll encourage you to ask questions by using that. We'll be able to see all your questions. We may not get to them in order, but we'll try to get to all of them. I'll direct them to our students and faculty members, and you know, just keep them coming, because we want to answer what's on your mind. Let's see here. You'll be muted and you won't be able to see yourself, but you can see us. So without further ado, we'll just get started, and I'll introduce our panelists here. We have on the call tonight Chris Howes, who's our Assistant Head of School for Student Life and Culture. Leah Rockwell, who's our Dean of Experiential Programming. Selas Douglas, who is a history teacher, grade dean, also Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We have Sankah, who's a senior this year, and Matthew Tavarez, who's in 10th grade. So I'll turn it over to them, and I'll let them introduce themselves. A note to our participants as well, up at the right-hand corner of your screen, you can toggle between speaker view and gallery view. Gallery view lets you see everyone at the same time. That's the view we would recommend, but it's totally up to you. So I'll let our panelists introduce themselves. We can start with you, Mr. Howes, and then please submit your questions. We can't wait to hear from you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Howes. This is my third year here at Mercersburg Academy. I was at a previous boarding school, previously at a boarding school up in New England, and I've worked at a number of day schools as well, and a couple of universities. It has been a great, wonderful past 3 years getting to know the students and the faculty here at Mercersburg, and has really been the best stop yet for me. This is my role here is really overseeing all the student programs as it relates to the students and their experience here, both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, and working with the faculty that work with them in supporting them and working with their social emotional growth and development. We'll obviously talk a lot more about that as we continue, but again, welcome, and we're really excited to have you with us.
Leah, do you want to go next? We can see you, we just can't hear you. You just have to unmute, bottom left-hand corner. Perfect.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So my name is Leah Rockwell. I'm the Dean of Experiential Programming at Mercersburg Academy. Thank you for being here this evening. It's really important that you ask us anything that's on your mind, because we've got, I'm sure, plenty of answers. I graduated from Mercersburg in 1997, and I've been at the school since 2005 with some brief periods away for maternity leave and such. But my role as Dean of Experiential Programming is really to oversee all of our co-curricular programs. So I'm in charge of overseeing athletics, outdoor education, global programs, community engagement, and the arts. And having a position like mine is really so that we can coordinate what we're doing in the experiential realm of the school with all other aspects of the student experience. So Mr. Howes and I work a lot together. I'm also the grade dean of the 11th grade class.
All right. Mr. Douglas.
Hello, everybody. I am Selas Douglas. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This is my second year at Mercersburg, but my fourth boarding school. So I've seen how equity and inclusion is kind of incorporated into the inner workings of a school in a number of different settings. At all of the other schools that I've been a part of, diversity, equity, and inclusion has been a part of my role and experience there. And so I'm really excited to be able to formalize that with some of the work that we're doing and that we've been able to kind of start in the last 2 years and are really anticipating taking off in the years to come. Primarily my work is with Mr. Howes and the Student Life Office and thinking about how the student experience is shaped and how we can create more space for a diverse range of students. And the best way that we do that is by making sure that our teachers are supported and that they're getting the tools that they need to be able to lead from a place of empathy and really focus on getting to know who the students are in an authentic way. And so we are really kind of building our systems in a way that we can continue to do that effectively. So I'm excited to connect with you all and look forward to getting to answer your questions.
Matthew, you want to go?
Sure. Hi, Matthew. I'm in the 10th grade currently, and some things that I do on campus is I am a Math Center Fellow, which is a center for people who, if they need help for math homework, they can go there and they can receive the help that they need. I'm an assistant duty dean, which means I help around every night, once a night for once a week, so that I can make sure that things are going smoothly and assist the duty dean who's going around the campus dorms, so that they can make sure everyone's accounted for and things like that. And I'm looking forward to answering all of your questions.
And Matthew, where is home for you?
My home is in Paterson, New Jersey.
Thanks.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Abba. I'm originally from Ghana, but now I call Florida home. I'm a senior this year. Last year was my first year at Mercersburg, actually. And this year as a senior, I'm a student body president, a member of the chorale, a tour guide, a library assistant, and a member of the BSU. I'm really excited to answer all your questions, so keep them coming.
Awesome, thanks. A couple of you mentioned the grade dean role. So I wonder, Chris, if you would be willing just to share with our participants what a grade dean is at Mercersburg.
Yeah, so why don't I start just kind of in a larger context of our systems and structures. And we have structures set up so that we can support our students in this community away from their home in a way that we can make sure that we have touch points in a variety of different spots. So one of those is that we have our student life office where there's myself and the dean of students and the assistant dean of students / director of dormitories. And then in addition to that, we have grade deans. And each one of those Selas and Leah are both actually also grade deans. And they travel with their class. So Selas right now is a 9th grade dean, and he will be their 10th grade dean, and their 11th and their 12th, if he so chooses. And so the purpose of them is that they travel with them, are kind of able to see that 3,000-foot view of those kids and help work with the student leaders of that group to help them organize what they do and creating culture and community within those classes. In addition to that, there are dorm deans for each one of our dorms and dorm faculty that obviously work and live in the dorms. And they oversee the residential experience of all of our students. And with them, like the grade deans have their student councils to work with and student leaders. The dorm deans have prefects that live in the dorms and are student leaders and that are in charge of each wing within our dorms and supporting the students that live within those wings throughout the year. And now, while we're living virtually, are hosting wing meetings virtually with everyone. Hopefully some of your prefects are doing that. I know that a lot have been doing that to this point. And then a third layer, and probably the most important layer, is the advisor. All of our students have an advisor. The most that a group will have is about 8. Those dorm parents, dorm faculty live within the dorm or work within that dorm and are also an advisor within that dorm. And so when they're on duty, they have the ability to have those touch points with those kids on a weekly basis, if not more. And they are the kind of liaison between both the students and the parents, and work and partner with parents and students through their experience here. There's other groups. There's also peer mentors and peer leadership with new students that enter in 9th grade and new students that enter in 10th grade, where they have a group that will meet once a week that is led by a student leader, and they help them, again, through their transition into a new environment, new experience. So that's the kind of overview. There's a little bit more, few details and other things that are in there, but I'll let other people fill in and maybe talk about their experience. Maybe what a grade dean should share about what their experience is like more specifically. And Matthew or Abba, maybe you can share, Abba in particular, or Matthew, about your 9th grade experience and joining, and Abba maybe a little bit about the prefect and dorm life experience.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I'll actually throw a question to Abba, and I think in that question, Abba, you can talk about what it's like to be in the dorm. There have been a couple questions asked about what weekends are like here at Mercersburg, and so I'd love for you to be able to tell everyone and talk about the dorm, and kind of piggybacking off of that, Ms. Rockwell, I'll let you talk about what the rules are when someone wants to leave campus on the weekends after Abba goes.
All right, so on weekends is like basically like friend time. That's when we all like chill and hang out. So we have student activity events, SAC events that go on every weekend. So on like Tuesday, we'll get an email from our SAC director, Trini. And so there's like different activities, like we'll take trips to Georgetown. There might be a Chipotle run. There might be bingo night. There might be like a school play going on, or they'll like invite someone to come sing or do karaoke with us. And then a lot of us just like hang out in our rooms. We can, so normally on weeknights, we can't go to other dorms during study hours. So on weekends, you're allowed to travel to the other dorms, and the pools are open on Sundays. So sometimes people go to the pool, and a lot of people like to go to Food Line to get their groceries and snacks for the week. And we also have this really cute coffee shop in town called One North, and Sundays they get a lot of customers from Mercersburg students. We're all there trying to do our last minute homework, and the dorms are really packed on weekends. So we'll usually have the same people who are like on the duty desk. So basically when you check into the dorm, they'll be on staff, and people just like to chill and hang out in there and just talk to each other. And so everyone's Mercersburg weekend experience is different, but that's mine. Matthew, is there anything you want to add to that?
I mean, sometimes you will have your PGA, your after school activity. Sometimes you have it on Saturdays. So if you have like a game or a meet or rehearsal, for me, since I have dance, you'll do that on like Saturday morning. But Saturday nights, Friday night is your hangout time. There's a lot you can do on campus, but there's also some limitations. So that's where my transition to you.
And Matthew, do day students and Abba, not everyone on the call would be a boarding student next year. There'll be some day students as well. Do you hang out with day students on the weekend too?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. A lot of them sleep over in dorms. I know I've hosted a day student, and they're always on there. And sometimes I forget who's a day student and who's a boarder, because we're so interlinked all the time that it's only when people start driving and their cars, I'm like, oh, so that's where you're off to. So My parents were day students at their boarding schools, and they told me how they felt isolated during their time at their boarding schools. But I don't think day students feel like that. They're very much attached to us all the time and have the same experience.
Yeah, it's very welcoming, and there's never been a time where the day student is excluded in my friend group, and my friend groups, they've never been excluded because they're a day student. They've always been around, and it's so fun to be able to actually have day students, because sometimes they can bring you stuff that you wouldn't be able to get. Like if you want Chipotle and there's not a Chipotle run, you can get Chipotle and they'll bring it to you. Like things like that. It's always nice to have a day student friend, and it's so cool to have like people from all over the place at Mercersburg.
Thanks, guys. All right, Leah, I'll let you talk about what are the rules around leaving campus if students want to leave at any point during the week.
Sure. So I would say, and Mr. Howes, you can chime in on this too, but really flexible about during the week, if you want to, with a buddy, walk into town to like the coffee shop that Abba mentioned. That's something that you're allowed to do without asking any kind of explicit permission. We just ask that you always go with someone and that you use Veracross to do a virtual checkout and tell us you've gone off campus. A really big point of understanding with leaving campus is if you're ever going to ride in a vehicle with someone, you need specific, explicit permission from parents for that. And that's a really big deal. You can take weekends. We hope you spend most of your time on campus with us on weekends because we have a lot going on, but you can get permission to take a weekend, and that usually goes through a conversation between your parents or guardians and the advisor to know what your plans are, and then you do a form through Veracross to be able to do that. You'll find that weekends are pretty busy, and most people do stay on the weekends. I know that's not the case for every school, but we're usually a pretty busy place on the weekends.
Yeah, I would just add to that, one of my favorite weekend occurrences is when we have a big day where we're playing one team and we've got 6 or 7 different sports happening, kind of at the same time or all throughout the day. And you'll just see students travel en masse from one event to the next event. Like Leah said, our campus is pretty active on the weekends, whether it's something that's happening with your PGAs or whether it's something that's happening with a student activity event, or whether it's just students that are hanging out together in the student center or in dorm rooms. Someone that lives on campus, it's a very different feel when you recognize students have left for a long weekend or for a break, and you see, man, I'm surprised that, the energy is kind of tamped down a little bit. We kind of get used to there being some consistent action on campus.
Yeah, for sure. The questions are rolling in. I love it. Keep them coming. Abba, you mentioned when we were talking about weekends, you mentioned going to the coffee shop, you mentioned going to Food Lion, to the grocery store. There's a question about general safety on campus and in the local community. Since you mentioned walking into town, can you just speak to that a little bit of your general sense of the safety here?
Yeah, so when I go to town, I personally always make sure that I have my roommate is my best friend, so we usually do everything together. The town is pretty safe, where like if I were to walk in town alone, I wouldn't feel kind of unsafe. Our college counseling office is kind of like in the middle of town a little bit, so sometimes I have to walk there alone, but I really don't feel unsafe at all. It's a really small town, and I think it's so cute. I live in Florida, so I've never really experienced anything kind of like it. So I really like it. And our local pizza shop is so tiny that like when you go in, they'll like start like calling you by your name, which I thought was pretty cool. And like they'll start memorizing your orders, so that kind of gives you a sense of how small the town is.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Anyone want to add anything to that?
The only thing I might add is that I have 3 small children, 2 of which are celebrating their birthday tonight, that are 11 and 8. And so 11, it's weird to say. But they go to local elementary school, which is down the town. And so they walk home. So it's safe in that it's that safe in that small children can walk back and forth to school within the town. And it is a very much a one of the beauties of this place is that we really are here together. There's not a lot of outside influence / stressors that come with living in maybe a more populated area. So they really get to just kind of experience the oasis of being here in this place.
Thanks, Chris. Someone asked how many weekends they could take, and I can just chime in real quickly and say that I know you can take 10 weekends away from campus, besides from the long weekends that are offered in the fall, winter, and spring, which are open campus weekends. So people can go home, but they can also leave. It's really rare that people take the 10 weekends that they can. Abba, you're nodding your head. You would agree that it's pretty unusual.
For sure. There's just so much going on campus that like people really don't want to miss out on it. So everyone's like there most of the time.
Yeah, perfect. I want to pivot a little bit here. Someone noticed, as they've already looked at our calendar for next year, that there are no classes offered in the first week of school. Matthew, can you speak a little bit about what it's like coming as a new student when you register, that first week before you start classes, and then we could jump into a little bit more of the daily schedule after that.
Yeah, so when you first move in, you register, and registering is, I think, one of my favorite parts of it, and it's like the first thing. But I think it was like when it hit me, when like this is gonna be like my life for the next while, and I think it was so cool to meet your advisor. Usually your advisor will be around somewhere at registration. You get to meet different people around. You meet so many faces within that small period of time of registration. But that's when you get your key, you get your picture taken for your blue card, and then you head to your dorm. And then that first day, I believe, is inbound. And so inbound is, I think, a day and a half of like activities where you kind of get to know people within your grade, and then meet student leaders in the community. So whether it be, president or prefect or peer group, all different types of leadership positions that are on campus to help students adjust and kind of be comfortable in this new kind of environment. And then that first week after inbound is when the rest of the returners come back, so like the students who have already been there a year. And then that first week without classes would be like the first week of PGA. And so your activity, your sport, will be held every day, I think twice a day for those days. So for me, it'll be dance, but soccer will happen twice a day. And though that period of time is preseason, and it's just for you to kind of get into shape for the regular season. And it's also to select where you're going to land and what level you belong in, depending on your skill. So you seem challenged in whatever you may be doing.
Great, thanks, Matthew. And maybe Matthew, you could just continue from the ninth grader perspective, or from any new student perspective. When you're coming, you have study hall as a new ninth grader, also as a new 10th grader. What is study hall like? Like, what time of day does that happen? And what do you do after, your afternoon activity between study hall and for the rest of the evening?
Right. Study hall is every school night. So if you have school the next day, that will be school night, and you'll have it from 8 p.m. to 9:30. So you will go back to your dorm, check in, and then go back out into Irvine, which is the main academic building. You will go there, and basically study hall will be a time where you can get your homework done, and it's a place where you kind of start to get accustomed to how to do homework, how to, manage your time, and how would you do it without the guidance of a teacher. For ninth graders, it will be for the fall term, and then the 10th graders, I believe, is the first 5 weeks until the interim. Correct me if I'm wrong, sorry. And yeah, it was great to have that because study hall taught me how to manage my time really well, and it allowed me to find extra time to be able to do new things and use that extra time to work on personal music or do my own kind of thing and explore some more.
Can I chime in just a little bit about that? Is that when they do go to Irvine, that they go to they'll be divided into small classes. So it'll be like 12 ninth graders in a classroom with somebody there supporting them during that period of time until the interim, and then until the end of that trimester, and then they end up back in the dorm. One of the really neat freedoms of the school is that some other boarding schools that I've worked at, study hall is really strict. The doors are open in all the rooms. There's somebody kind of going up and down the hall, making sure there's no cell phone use, no watching videos. There's a lot more, we function with a lot more trust here, and with the understanding that we're expecting that independence and that growth, with the also understanding that if students abuse that independence, we'll put structures in place to make sure that they're supported so that they can be their best selves in their classes and through their experiences. But we do kind of hopefully use that first trimester to train them and study skills and support them. And then slowly we allow them to kind of have a little bit more freedom in terms of how they go about their study and the structure that we put in place around them.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Selas, would you mind speaking a little bit to the resources that students have with faculty members on campus? Someone asked about, how strong relationships are between students and faculty members. So I'd love if you could just speak to that.
Sure. One of the things that I think is a huge advantage in being a member of a boarding school is that not only do the students get to see and connect with students in a variety of different ways, but they get to see us in a variety of different settings as well. So there have been years that I have coached a student in both soccer and wrestling, and I've also taught them, and they happen to be in my ninth grade class, right? And so they're getting to see so many different versions of Mr. Douglas. And I'm not unique in that sense, right? That's really kind of the model that most of us are operating within. And so students have an opportunity to find trusted adults in a variety of different ways, right? And so they may have a really strong relationship with their chemistry teacher, and then also a very strong relationship with their dance instructor. We put in a lot of intentional structures to allow them to be able to find some of those connections in an authentic way. We talked a little bit about that first week where they're only engaging in their PGA and kind of doing some group activities. Along with that, they're norming to the community and starting to get a sense of who they're around, right? And starting to develop some of those relationships. And so, once we get into the year, a student typically will have a number of different trusted voices that they can rely on. And if they happen not to have that, we have structures in place that will likely catch that, right? We're going to be able to see and recognize, oh, you know what, this student seems to not be connected. What are some of the adjustments that we should be making to make sure they get the support they need?
Great, thanks. I don't know if Abba or Matthew want to speak to that at all. You don't have to, but I'll let you, yeah.
I'll just say, I came from a really big public school, and so my class sizes were 35 plus. So coming to Mercersburg with such small classrooms of teachers who actually cared enough to know my name and get to know me really meant a lot. And teachers at Mercersburg really go above and beyond to make sure that you're doing well and you feel comfortable in your classes. My first couple of months at Mercersburg, I was really struggling in one of my classes, and my teacher, my APUSH teacher, Ms. Stevens, really could see that, and she emailed me and reached out to me and started setting up meetings for me to work with her, and that meant a lot to me. And so our teacher student teacher relationship at Mercersburg is really tight, for sure.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that, especially the public school part. I came from a public school in Patterson, and it was a great transition from, your teachers necessarily not really knowing you to like your teachers really caring a lot about you and talking to you even outside of the classroom. I know Mr. Stenson was my bio teacher in 9th grade, and every single time we had soccer, we would pass like the varsity pitch, and he's a varsity coach for soccer. And he would always like say hi to me. And I thought it was just like so cool to kind of have someone who, will like a teacher who would always say hi to you even outside of the classroom, and, make the effort to talk to you and to just have a bond with you, more personal than just a teacher and a student. That was really cool.
Thanks, Matthew. Well, we could go in so many different directions here. I know that people want to know what a typical day looks like. So, Abba, maybe you could just go through real quickly what a typical day looks like, and then we can get to some more questions, kind of rapid fire.
Okay, so a typical day for me, I wake up at 7:30 because I try to get to breakfast at 8:20 because classes start at 8:50. So classes go from 8:50 to 3:40, but in our 7 block rotations, we only have 6 classes a day. And each student is usually assigned 1 free period. So you kind of have like a breather in the day, but if not, if your free rotation does not meet, we have a help session where like if you go to class one day and you're like really struggling with something and you want to like grasp right away, you just meet with your teacher and they'll like sort it out. And so help is usually right after lunch, and it's about a 30-minute block period. So right after school, at 4 o'clock is usually when your PGAs meet. So PGAs meet from 4 to 6, and PGAs range from sports to theater to, you could be a library assistant, a sport manager, could work at the gym and help teams train. There's a variety of different things you can do. Then after PGAs, we have dinner at 6:30. So on Mondays, we have formal dinner. So we all get dressed up. And we head to the dining hall to have family style meals, and those last about 30 minutes. And then from 7 to 9, yes, that's study hall hours. So underclassmen usually meet with their study hall. Matthew, you could double check me if I'm wrong. And then upperclassmen usually do their homework in the library, but they don't have to. Some of us do it in the dorm as well. And then we all have to be in the dorms by 10 o'clock. And then at 11 o'clock, teachers will come in to your dorm to just make sure that you're in your room situated. And so for underclassmen, they actually have to be in bed. But for upperclassmen, 11th and 12th graders, you just have to be in your room. So you don't have to have your lights out or anything like that.
And Abba, you have such a busy day. Do you ever get to call home? That was a question.
Absolutely. I have a mama bear mom, so she calls me all the time and makes sure that I have time for her. So most of the time I try to call her between my study hall hours, or even just right now as a senior, I'm taking the season off, so I have free time, a lot of free time in the afternoons. So I call her then, but there's plenty of time for sure.
Good. Thanks. And Matthew, real quick, what are the rules regarding having phones on campus?
Phones on campus. So during the school day, really don't want to see them. You can get a tech violation pretty quickly if you have them out. But you can have them out in the student center, and I believe in the dorms during the school day, if I'm not wrong. And then yeah, just make sure you don't have them during the school day. But other than that, there isn't really anything else. After the school day, you're pretty free to use your phone, unless your instructor tells you not to, or you can use your phone if your instructor tells you to.
Awesome, thanks. So I wanna kind of pivot and talk more holistically here. A lot of students are thinking a lot right now about where to go next year, whether they stay at home, whether they go to Mercersburg, another boarding school. Fit is so important, as you guys know. Yeah, Chris, I know you've worked at a day school and boarding schools. I wonder if you can speak a little bit to why a boarding school versus a day school. You know, what are you going to get here that you're not going to get if you stay at home? And also, you know, if the students or anyone else wants to chime in then about just how they feel like they fit into our community and what it's like to be a student and how you know, jump in. And then anyone can speak to that.
All right, so I'm going to speak specifically about Mercersburg in the sense of what we value in the thing that separates us, I think, from a lot of other places, at least for me in my experience here. And it relates to that focus of relationships. Relationships are the most important thing in this community, and it translates into the rigor and the academic experience that students have as well. I think teachers value the relationships first. And so by building those relationships, all the other things kind of flow after that. And so when we ask and challenge students in the classroom, they know that they trust that teacher and they trust that adult in their life because those relationships have been established. It's the same thing on the playing field. It's the same thing in the theater, same thing in dance, that we cultivate, and there's a constant focus on cultivating relationships and connection here that make this a really unique and special place. And as that relates to the question that was asked, at a boarding school, you can do that. You can take that, you have time to create and cultivate those relationships with students in a way that allows for a richer experience and allows for greater success. And there's a lot of studies out there and research that shows success is really about having a sense of a meaning in your life. And meaning comes through the relationships that you have with other people. And when you feel that and you have that, you're going to have greater success. And so that's why we value it. And that's why we put time into it. And at day schools, it becomes very easy to make excuses not to have relationships because you can go home and do what you need to do or be with the certain group of friends that you want to be with. At boarding school, you have to interact with everybody at all times. And Mercersburg is one of those places that has a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life, and it accepts people from their different walks of life and allows you to be the individual. And I know that seems kind of hyperbolic, but it really is like that. And it really is special in that way. And then the other value, and this is the value of a boarding school education just alone, is the independence that you gain. I try to tell the story all the time. And I was in my early 20s. I went to public school, and I was in my early 20s, and I was teaching. I was going through a rough time in my life, and I was on the phone with my father, and my father was like, "Man, I wish I just made you struggle more when you were a kid, so that you would be able to deal with this better." And in a boarding school, kids are able to experience these experiences independently and have to navigate those with adults that aren't necessarily their parents, but their parents are always there to support them in the background, as I know you all are. But the fact is that they're still navigating it independently. And those are skills that our students will carry with them for the rest of their life, and are really skills that we need in our world right now. And those skills of resilience and independence and independent thinking, and that is the advantage of a Mercersburg education.
Thanks, Chris. Does anyone want to chime in there as they were making a decision to come to Mercersburg? You know, things that were on their mind when they were choosing. I know, Matthew, you shared earlier that you didn't even see Mercersburg when you decided.
Yeah, the only kind of showcase of Mercersburg that I had was Marco, a freshman at the time when I was applying, and he would tell me about like the sense of community, and he told me about how much how many people he knew like pretty well compared to people back at home in such a short amount of time, and then I would always use the example of, I think I've made closer friends at Mercersburg within, a year, 2 years than, than the friends that I've had, back at home in Patterson for 9, 10 years. You interact with people so many times, and you have so many conversations to get to know, one another for who they are, and then, what's their story, what's their life story. And I think that's so cool to truly be able to do that on such a regular basis.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. We've gotten a couple questions about diversity at Mercersburg in our community, and specifically, Selas, can you speak about the LGBTQ plus community as part of diversity here at Mercersburg?
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope I'll answer that question through my response, but I'll kind of talk a little bit about how we view diversity writ large, because a lot of times we think of diversity in these binary terms, right? It's either black or white, or it's either gay or straight. And what we've really tried to shift the narrative to is talking about respecting people for who they actually are, and being able to kind of value in an authentic way the diverse range of things that people are bringing to the table, right? And so someone's sexual identity is part of that. And that's absolutely tied to it. We have a number of supports on campus. There's the Rainbow Alliance that is active right now, and then there's another group that's closer to an affinity group of folk that identify with that group. But all across the board, what we're really focusing on is trying to create inclusive spaces, and make people feel valued, and allow all of us to engage in the process of creating that setting where everybody feels valued within that space. And so, yeah, it's absolutely a part of our long-term planning.
Great, thanks. I don't know if Chris or Leah, you want to jump in at all, speaking about Mercersburg community and your experience here, just give you a chance to answer. Otherwise, we'll jump on to the next fun question here. So another question, and I love this, is how would each of you describe Mercersburg in one word? The Mercersburg community. I know you can take a moment to think. Anyone want to go first?
I'll start by saying genuine. I think I always tell my dad that, like, after we left our revisit day, the campus is beautiful, but the people there have such beautiful spirits, and they genuinely care about you and want to see you thrive. It's not just a one-time act. The way people treat you on revisit day is the same way they're going to treat you when you enroll as a student.
I think I would piggyback off of that and say warm. I feel like our community is extremely warm and inviting. I know that one of the biggest pieces of feedback we get is that, especially, I mean, I grew up in a small town, so I'm used to everyone saying hello. But I feel like that takes maybe the first week or maybe of school before you get that that's what we do here. When you see someone walking by them on campus, whether or not you know them, you say hello, because we are very warm.
I would probably, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say interesting. I think it's like, and I touched upon this before, but people are so different, and it's just so cool to have a platform that you can meet people from all around the world, no matter where they're from, and whatever walk of life they've had. It's so cool to just be able to sit down with people and have genuine conversations, not only with students but also with faculty members. I think I've known if it wasn't for Mercersburg, I wouldn't know like adults as much as I do. Like I don't know how to phrase that, but you know, I've never had such genuine conversations with adults. Like they've been very genuine and to the T about what they want to say, and they're not afraid to, you know, be very honest with whatever they're trying to say. I think it's so cool.
The word that immediately came to mind for me is humility. And it's something that really kept coming up when I first got to campus. In my first 2 or 3 months, I would find out something new every week or two that would kind of blow my mind and say, really, this is the first time I'm hearing about this? You know, I'm shocked that this isn't being written about in the newspapers and people aren't shouting about it. And I say some of that jokingly, but in reality, I was really surprised by the different things that I would find out, or the different people that we were connected to, or the amazing thing that one of our faculty members had done over the summer. You know, and it really seems to be kind of this quiet confidence that exudes throughout the whole community of recognizing, you know, we know who we are, and we're pursuing excellence, and we're doing it in a way that's unique to Mercersburg.
I guess I'd use the word home. And I say that I was just reading a book today on restorative practices. And one of the things it talked about was how school needs to be a home away from home. And what we mean by that is that it's a place where people should feel safe to be who they are, and feel comfortable and safe, essentially. And so when I think about Mercersburg and I think about the kids that we have here, and you can see it in Abba and Matthew here, when they're not here, it doesn't feel like home, quite honestly. But when they are here, it feels like home, because I think they feel safe, but it makes me feel safe. And it makes me feel like I'm in a place where I can be who I am and my authentic self.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate all those answers, and I agree. I agree with all of you. So let's see. Leah, I wonder if you could talk a little bit just about the struggles that a student might face while they're here, and then obviously students can jump in. But you've worked with so many students over the course of your years as a dorm dean, and now in this position. Yeah, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. So I think Abba mentioned this a little bit, but I think a really common experience is homesickness. It happens, you know, but I think one of the beauties of the way we run our dorms is that there are so many supports in place for when you're having those feelings. There's so many places that you can go. I think that's a struggle, and I would say it doesn't last that long. And the more you put in to just surrendering to being within the community and really buying in, the quicker that period will pass. I think another struggle that I've seen students have is sometimes, and it's really developmentally normal for where you are, you're going to start learning that maybe some of the views that you're developing aren't necessarily the views that other people in your life might hold. That might be family, that might be friends from home, but you're going to start really figuring out what your adult views are, and that can present a struggle too. But I think what's really cool about that is you usually at Mercersburg will find someone else experiencing the same thing, and that's something you can talk about. And you also can talk about it with peers, and then also with other adults outside of your own family. Like, these are some thoughts I'm having. How can I talk about this with other people in my life? So I think that developmental, like figuring out who you are and what your opinions are is really, really normal. I don't know if either of you want to talk about that at all, either Matthew or Abba.
Um, I think one of the struggles as a student is that a lot of us are very ambitious and very driven, and we want to do everything we can get our hands on. But unfortunately, we can't, and it can wear down on you, and you can stretch yourself too thin. And I was telling other panelists that I take 3 naps a day, but at Mercersburg, I can't do that because I have commitments to do. And so when you're at Mercersburg, I really do encourage you guys to join a number of things, but when you're choosing your classes, your clubs and things that you want to be a part of, give yourself a month to kind of settle in. When I came, I jumped at it all at once. And at the end of my fall term, I kind of crashed, and I really had to just take a minute to just step back and just get in the swing of things. So I think that's a struggle, just getting into your rhythm and finding your schedule.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think some of the faculty members can attest to this, of me just being very ambitious, and I love to try to get my hand on everything. I joke with some of my friends now because of the current situation. There's not a lot of clubs or anything, so we have a lot of time, and so I'm calling people. I'm like, yeah, I just feel like I have so much time recently. Like I have too much time, so I'm working on different projects now to replace that, like substitute it for a little bit. But no, honestly, it's fun to be ambitious. I think it's needed because it's part of that community. It's part of that, like it's a good struggle to have, like to be able to be part of so many different clubs and help out in whatever way you can. I think it's so cool, and I think that is a very key part of community.
Thanks, Matthew and Abba. Those were great answers. I want to jump back to dorm life a little bit, because I know students are curious about dorms. Like, do you have one roommate? Do you have two? Are there any singles? Are there rules about, boys coming to girls' dorms or vice versa? I don't know who wants to take a stab at it first.
I think I'll take a stab at it, just because I have a weird situation. I have 2 roommates. I have one of 6 triples on campus. So there's only the triples, meaning there's 3 people in one room. They're bigger to accommodate those 3 people, and I think it's a different dynamic because usually on campus there's only two people to a room. But it's up to you really. Having a triple for me is just an opportunity to have 2 of my close friends living with me, and we bond very well together, and kind of just gel together really nicely. But the dorm process happens at the end of the year for the next year. So if you're a returner, you get to choose your roommate and then select dorm preference and then room preference. As an incoming, as someone who's new, you'll be assigned a roommate, but you'll be given a kind of like a forum, I guess you can say, a little questionnaire about like your preferences. Do you wake up early? Do you wake up later? Do you play music out loud or in your headphones? How do you like a quiet space or louder space? Different things like that. So you can be paired with a roommate who is more, much like you, and that kind of matches to your, likeness of the room. So if you want to keep your room clean, people can keep it clean. I think it's really cool on Mercersburg part, and it takes a lot of time. I've been to the offices in which they look at that, and they start very early. Once they get it, they're on a roll. It takes a while, according to them. So, I appreciate that, and I think I was paired with a really good roommate. So yeah, just trust that process for the first year, and I think it's really cool.
And just to add on about people of the opposite sex coming into your dorm. So on Fridays and Saturdays, you can have someone of the opposite come to your room. So our protocol is you have to check them in at the duty desk, and then they hand you a lovely brick for you to place on the outside of your door, and you have to have your door open, and then faculty members will do random checks on you. So yeah.
With that being said, though, Abba, we've talked about this in student council. We've talked about how important it is for there to be healthy relationships between genders, between all genders, and that we are in a lot of conversation, and will continue a lot of conversation about how do we encourage healthy relationships and create environments for students of all genders to spend time together in a healthy, happy way, and that for not to be perceived always as sexual in nature. And so how do we create that environment? And that's something that we are talking about as a school.
Thanks, Chris. So a lot of students have questions about clubs that are offered, activities. How do you balance your commitment to, say, a sport, and then also your involvement in activities? And then additionally, you know, how do you get your homework done with those commitments as well? I don't know, Abba, if you want to jump in there, or Matthew. I guess about clubs and activities first, you know, and if someone wants to start a new club, Abba, maybe you can speak to that. And yeah.
Yeah, of course. So we have tons of different clubs ranging from the baking club, Black Student Union, to mindfulness club. And so since I'm on student council, one of our jobs is that if all are welcome to start a new club if they want, you just fill out the sheet and you just have people sign it for you who will like possibly be members of it, and then it goes to student council and we vote on it. And we're pretty nice about it. It's very rare that we deny the opportunity for a club to be started. Matthew, do you want to add on that?
Yeah, starting club, like Ava said, it's very easy. It's just a very small sheet of paper and some signatures, and you know, they vote on it. Finding the time, you know, at first, I think for me it was very difficult, especially because I signed up for so many clubs, and eventually I kind of had to turn down some clubs just because you have to be able to realize, you know, what's your limit and what are you able to do, what you're not able to do. But the big thing that I learned before Mercersburg, and I'm happy that I learned before Mercersburg, but there's many opportunities to learn it in Mercersburg, is time management. I always use my phone to put in calendar stuff. So I leave a block of time for homework, and I leave a block of time, you know, to play video games or whatever it may be. Kind of always keeping track of what I have next so that, you know, I'm not late to anything. And I'm also, you know, checking off my own agenda and my own, you know, homework and personal projects that I want to work on and things like that. So time management is a big thing, but it's very, you know, possible to be able to, you know, have good time management at Mercersburg and to learn it.
Right. Thanks for bringing up time management. I mentioned earlier about how I told you all about how I joined so many clubs and it wore me out beginning of the year. So what happened was I made an appointment to see our academic specialist, Ms. Machula. She was really gracious enough to help me figure out my time management, because unlike Matthew, I did not have a good time management. My mom kind of like helped me with that, and so being at a boarding school, I was independent. I didn't have that, so Ms. Machula really helped me create a plan that worked for me to balance it out, and it really made all the difference in my Mercersburg career. So if you come in and you don't have those skills, don't worry, the support is there.
I appreciate you adding that in. Let's see. Well, I think we're you know, our time is almost up. The hour is flying by. We just have a couple minutes left here, and we've, I think, hopefully answered almost every single question. And if we haven't, we'll definitely be in touch with you. I just want to turn it over to our panelists at this point and see if they have any last words of wisdom or encouragement that they want to offer to you. I also just want to take this moment to thank the panelists for spending this time with us this evening, and thank all the participants again. We know that it's a challenging and uncertain time right now for everyone, and certainly unprecedented what we're having to wade through. And so we appreciate you spending this time with us and asking us questions. If anyone wants to, Chris, if you have any closing thoughts or anything that was top of mind that you wanted to share that we didn't get to, I'd love for you to be able to do so now.
Yeah, honestly, I think the only thing I really want to say is that my contact information is provided. Reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to get back on Zoom, answer on the phone. talk to you via email. Any of that is I'm really happy to do. And then one last little anecdote that I want to leave you with is, you know, obviously students aren't here right now, and we are doing our best through our virtual Berg to continue school. And I will say leading the charge of trying to stay connected and try to continue to create a community within this virtual world has been the students. We as faculty and myself, I am happy to try to find ways to do it, but they, ABBA leading the way, have said, all right, so how are we going to get student activities going? So we have different things that are games and stuff and hangouts via virtually that students are going to be hanging out during the week that we're scheduling. There's things on Instagram that they're doing together. They are not just taking classes. It is important that they are together, that they're communing, and it is driven by them. And to be someone like me in my position, to be a part of a community like that, is really, really powerful and emotional, quite honestly. So I am, it's a great place.
Yeah, I would follow up and echo everything that Chris said. I think Liam's going to be sharing out our contact info if you all had more specific questions. You know, I mentioned early on that this is my fourth boarding school, and I commented to someone earlier on in the year that this is the first place that I've been that I'm genuinely excited to see as many people as I do when I'm walking across campus. And that ranges to the different students that I have in my classroom, that ranges to the students that I coach, the students that I just randomly meet as time goes on, because I recognize that they know my name and I don't know theirs yet. And so that means that we've been able to start developing a relationship. To my colleagues who are phenomenal, and it's not a utopia, right? Like this, every place has their challenges and the things that they want to do to kind of take themselves to the next level. But you know, I think even what we're experiencing now and how community has kind of come together to both support one another, but then also to say, you know, we're going to do as much as we can in the time that we can. We're going to connect when and how we can. You know, all of those things make a school a special place. When you're living and doing the work of school at the same place, the same physical location, making sure that that place feels like home is super important. And so I absolutely have found that at Mercersburg, and I'm sure you all will as well.
Thanks, Selas, and thanks, Chris, for those words. Ava, I don't know if you or Matthew have anything to add here. Well wishes to these students as they're making this final decision.
I'll just say, just advise students to go with your gut. And know that if you just trust the people and the faculty and students here at Mercersburg, they're gonna make it the best experience of your life. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on this panelist, I'm saying that because I genuinely love this school and it has provided me with so many opportunities that I would have never received. And I'm so grateful. And if you go here, you're just in for something amazing. And I really hope that you guys trust us when we say that. So I wish you good luck wherever you call home next year.
You know, piggybacking what Alba said, I would have to agree. And like everyone else said, it was the sense of community that we have is so great. And you know, my heart was torn because I couldn't believe that such, you know, the event that was going on with the virus and, you know, prevented us from going back to a place that we all, you know, called home. We all call Mercersburg home. You know, it's somewhere that I'm proud that I'm from, you know, and I know so many great people there, and it was sad to not be able to go back, but something that Miss Titus, you know, told me when we had a call earlier in the year, or earlier this week, I think, was to make the most out of it. And it was to, you know, do things that you haven't tried before while at home, and be able to still connect with your, you know, loved ones and the people that you care about from Mercersburg, and still be able to call them and talk to them and catch up and things like that. Just because we're so far away doesn't mean that we still don't care for each other, that sense of community isn't there. It is totally there. And we just got to make it more prominent, you know.
Thanks, Matthew. Well, you can see everyone's contact information here. I know that everyone would be happy to engage in conversation with you if you have further questions. Thanks so much for spending your time with us this evening or this morning. And also, the recording of this will be back on the virtual Revisit Day page website probably tomorrow or the next day. So if you want to go back and reference it, please feel free to do so. As well as, you know, you can see our previous web panels. They're up there as well. And we have 2 more tomorrow night, just a student section, just a student panel, and just a parent panel. So 2 more this week. And we invite you to keep engaging with us in conversation and viewing everything that we have out there. So thanks so much again, and hope to see you next fall.
Bye-bye.